It's become a bit of a meme over the last few years, but I'm sure you've heard something along the lines of, just get off the internet, bruh. And, of course, you probably understand the intentions behind it. The idea behind this is that the reason why someone is a quote-unquote loser or unhappy or depressed, well, the reason for that is he's been spending too much time online. And if you would only get out into the real world, most of these problems would evaporate, or at least they would be improved, and he wouldn't have as many issues, and that fundamentally spending time online is a waste of time. There are a lot of different variants of this argument, so I'm not going to list them all. I'm just giving you the summary of the general line of thought of what people mean when they say that, and the kind of thought processes that go into this. Now, as if this were as simple as it's being portrayed. Yes, people spend a lot of time online, and the online world has a way of warping your perception of reality, which is to say you end up believing things that may or may not be true. You get sucked into echo chambers much more easily than you otherwise would. And in doing so, you're really exposed to other ideas, maybe ideas that in fact contradict what you think, but are in reality true, and you just don't know it. The online world is also a lot more comfortable. It requires less effort to interact with people than it would in real life. We've all been in that situation where you've actually had to physically go out and hang out with people. Maybe you get a coffee, a tea, whatever, get a meal. You have to pay attention to the person. You have to blather. You have to engage. It's a lot easier online just to drop into a chat and just say what's up. There's no commitment. There's no nothing. So yes, being online creates a set of circumstances that are somewhat alien to IRL existence, but people make it seem like it's that easy just to get offline and then just fix everything, whatever that even means, not taking into account, this is the major point here, why people were driven online in the first place. If a person has been spending most of his time online for a number of years, what do you think is going on there? Do you think that person had a lot of options in real life? Well, it's possible. I do know a few strange individuals that seem to partition their time equally between IRL and the online world, but they're few and far between. Most people who spend copious amounts of time online, or indeed the majority of their time online, are not people that were having a good time in real life. So, for example, they might come from an isolated area. I know a number of people from the United States online who come from the boonies, the middle of Kansas, the middle of nowhere, the middle of North Dakota, basically God's country. There's nothing out there for them. So online, the online world is the only place where they can interact, learn things, engage, mingle. So there's that type. But there's also the type of person that spends a lot of time online that, in fact, technically might have access to other things because maybe they live in a major city or heavily populated area, but they tried it, and they failed. And they simply prefer online existence. And another, probably the most prevalent reason, is the simple fact that even if you are in a large metropolitan area, or an area where you could mingle with people all the time, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to find like-minded people who share your interests, your predilections, etc., etc. And so the online world, although it's not infinite, is far, far larger because you're effectively looking at the entire world in terms of interests and things that unite people and join them. So I'm trying to basically list some situations that might explain why people are spending more time online than they otherwise would. But all these situations that I've depicted really have one thing in common, and that is whatever real life is offering, it isn't necessarily better than what the online environment is offering. And a lot of people struggle to come to terms with that fact. Because when they say to you, just get off the internet, bruh, the baseline assumption is that the alternative is vastly better. And that when you do get off the internet, you're going to enjoy a much better quality of life. Now, I should say, of course, that there are some things that should absolutely not be neglected. People neglect their exercise, the fact that they don't move at all. For example, exercise. People who don't move at all and do anything, not even walks, right? That's not good. Everyone benefits from exercise, no exceptions, end of story, right? So there are a few exceptions here, as in people who just don't do anything, complete shut-ins. But assuming you're not a total shut-in, the question really is the juice worth the squeeze? And it's really debatable. If you're already the type of person who struggles because you're not neurotypical, because you're not a normie, then the chances that you're going to have a better life out there than the life that you have constructed for yourself online, it's really hit or miss. And in my humble opinion, you're more likely to miss. Now, if we could go back in time to the period of time when there was no internet, things weren't much different. There just weren't a lot of options. People were more isolated and they couldn't do anything. And they did their best to cope with that. But that doesn't mean that that necessarily was better. I used to think that to some degree, because the internet has been in many ways very destructive. There's no question about that. But it didn't necessarily mean it was better, because I remember those times. Basically, the only thing you could do was watch television and read books. That was your entertainment, and your ability to mingle with people was pretty limited. So essentially what I'm trying to say is the world out there isn't necessarily what it's all cracked up to be. However, we should also bear in mind that if you decide to lead an online existence primarily, some things are going to be significantly more difficult, like finding a quote-unquote GF. Online dating, as everyone knows, been over this a million times, is absolutely brutal. And all but the top men are going to be screwed in the long run. You have to be willing to take the pros with the cons. What I'm mostly talking about is, I think, a kind of failed wisdom on the part of normies who claim that the world is just better out there. It can be, but only if you have the things that make life good. Friends, family, relationships. If you don't have any of that, then it begs the question, is it better to live in total isolation with almost no contact, barely talking to anybody? Or is it better to at least have some kind of online presence where you mingle with people socially, however fleeting it might be, interact with people, etc., etc.? Now, your average normie combines both to varying degrees. And again, I know people who aren't complete normies, but nonetheless kind of partition their time 50-50. But I would argue that if you have no options in real life, then online is probably going to be better for you, because the alternative is literally nothing. Zero, zilch, nada, null, nil, right? Just nothing. They should just get off the internet. There's some merit to that, but there's only merit to that if the things that these people are suggesting you should do are actually accessible. And many times they're not. That said as well, it might very well be worth investing the time and energy, at least for a while, trying to build those types of social relationships, participate in those types of interactions if you do sort of have that available. But the point I'm trying to make here at the end of the day is that for many internet dwellers, maybe even your average internet dweller, somebody who spends the majority of his time online, the alternatives out there are not better. They're demonstrably worse. And no amount of quote-unquote sage advice and calling people losers and telling them to get off the internet is going to change that. As always, thank you for tuning in. Please hit the bell icon to be informed of my videos. Share, like, comment, subscribe, and if I'm still alive, I'll check you out later. Take care. May the gods watch over you. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.